Welcome to the Patryk Real Estate Show, where we explore the fascinating world of real estate investing with your host, Patryk Waldhaus. Patryk is a dynamic young entrepreneur and an accomplished real estate investor who's passionate about helping others achieve financial freedom. Each week, we sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals in the real estate industry and delve into their personal journeys, lessons learned, and secrets to their success. Let's dive into this week's episode.
I'm so excited, Chris, to have you on the Patryk Real Estate Show. And Chris is more than just an Airbnb host. He's a horse guy first. And he's got this unique experience in the Joshua Tree area, combining horses with the experience and education to guests on how to interact with them, how to feel them, how to actually ride them. And he owns 50 acres in Joshua Tree to be able to have this experience with these tents and this camping experience, more than just tents, just very unique experiences on his land. And I just had to have him on to share his story and how you can think a little bit differently about your short-term rental strategy. And I'm just excited to have you, man. You're just a good guy overall. I'm happy to just chop it up.
Patryk, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invite, and I'm happy to share some information and hopefully some horse knowledge and awareness.
Yeah, let's do it. What's your story, man? What's your background? How'd you get into all this?
I grew up in the horse world. I grew up on a reservation outside of Durango, Colorado, the Ute Reservation. They still have wild horses in Colorado. We had horses as a kid. But I think it's important to say this. When I was 3, I displayed all the signs of severe autism, such as repetitive behavior and temper tantrums and no speech at all. But thanks to intensive speech therapy and taking turns during games, that helped me become verbal by the time I was 4. But my mom was duct taping me to a saddle when I was 3 years old. By the time I was 7, I could get on my own horse. She would put her head down and I could climb up onto her. But there's been numerous amounts of research that show how much equines improve social communication and just communication in general. But yeah, for me, I grew up on a farm after we left the reservation. We had our own horses, goats, chickens, much like I have here at Cascade Trails. Grew up in the mountains in Colorado. I think the closest place to us was a ranch called Stirrups Ranch. If anybody wants to look that up, it's off of Highway 2. Like Fremont County area. But just to give you an idea of Stirrups, so even when people say, wow, you have 56 acres in Joshua Tree, that's amazing. I'm like, yeah, I grew up next to a ranch that had 42,000 acres. So 56 is like a, but it's great.
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, I grew up around horses. So it's something that I've had involvement in my life, my entire life. And I took it upon myself to further my education when it came to horses. I've traveled all over the country with horses. I'm very much into endurance trail riding, which is 100 miles, 75 miles, 25 miles, 50 miles, henceforth the location that I chose for my place. I have access to the government land on the right side, the national park on the left side. There's plenty of trails to ride, hundreds of miles worth of trails. The plan is, and in action.
Well, how did you choose Joshua Tree? I'm curious on the logic behind that. Like, how did you even discover it? Because you've been there for a while now, right?
I'll be here. It'll be 3 years in October. I drove around the state of California. It's funny, during the pandemic, there was no traffic on the roads, right? A motorcycler's dream, or as we like to call it, a steel horse. I rode my steel horse all over the state. And that was due to my mentor's advice. And her advice was, get property let next to national parks. There's always going to be a lot of government land around national parks. And long story long, when I drove up to Joshua Tree, I drove past here to go into the 29 Palms entrance. And when I drove into the 29 Palms entrance, I came out into the Joshua Tree exit. But even as I came through, I was like, wow, this is really like a Western vibe. Where are the horses? So I saw the void and just came and filled it.
That's awesome, man. And that was like, it almost seems like divine timing for you. It's time.
Man, talk about divine. When I got in, Joshua Tree was about $4,000 an acre. I think we're sitting at close to 50. I'm being conservative. 15 grand an acre right now.
Yeah. And you got the acres that you sit on right now is probably worth more than even $15,000 an acre, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right.
Because you're right next to off of the main road, I guess. You're right off of that main road, essentially, but you're just far enough where it still feels secluded. It's like
I think it's because we have enough space. The desert is wide open, so we have enough space. But you're right. Most of the new builds around me are in the six to $20 million range. It's a very nice piece of property.
That's awesome. So let's talk about how you came here, right? And what were you doing before that? I think you had some background in Hollywood, right?
I did train horses in LA. I worked and lived at Sunset Ranch, which is in Hollywood under the Hollywood sign. I had some horse clients out in Westlake, Calabasas area, but I also did security or executive protection at the Roosevelt Hotel and the West Hollywood Edition. Not that I was in the industry or anything, but I was around quite a few people in the industry. And like I said, during the pandemic, it really lit a fire. Like I think horses have an ability to keep you living in the present moment. And I've been working horses my whole life. There's never really been a time that I wasn't working horses. But even doing the security and whatnot, I was still doing horses on the side. And horses have that ability to make you live in the present moment, right? So when the pandemic happened, most people got to stop working for a little while and sit back and think about things. But I didn't get to stop. Security doesn't stop. Horses don't stop, right? So I found myself working and everybody else was just sitting back for a minute. And I was like, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? I've trained some amazing horses for other people. Maybe I should start training them for myself. And I'd mentioned growing up on the reservation where our horses were never fenced in. They actually got to run wild. And then when we moved to our own ranch, obviously we fenced our horses in. But one of the horses broke loose and she ran off with a wild herd, got pregnant, came back. So my ties to Mustangs have been there for quite some time.
Wow.
And without going into the whole equine industry and the situation that we're in, Mustangs have a really bad situation right now. And so my primary focus is on Mustangs, but my doors are open to all horses. I think I just took a look at life and I was like, I went on a journey of personal and collective awakening. And so I thought to myself, how can I help people in this time? What can I do to give back? And horses were the answer.
Wow. So you had that urge to do something greater than yourself, right? You had that urge to change. And that was what inspired you to go out there, right? And create. What was your plan initially? Was it to create an Airbnb? I don't think Airbnbs were even like your focus. Like it was just about horses, right? So what was the first idea then for you?
The idea was a trail riding facility and a horse training trail riding facility. And I had grown up working horses and training horses. So I knew I could get Mustangs fairly inexpensive. And I could train them from the ground up and have novice riders on them in less than 4 months. And so I knew that I could take these horses out of a bad situation, put them in a good situation, and put them on trail. And people would be able to benefit from all the equine therapeutic benefits.
Maybe explain the therapy around that, because I don't even know, like what's the therapy I don't know that word that you used. It's a big word. So what about horses? You said it was equine therapy. How do horses give you that kind of therapy?
That's a great question. Equine therapy it can be assisted, it can be tool or group, but it's basically connecting with the horse, and nonverbal communication is what horses are great at. They're very empathetic. And they have an ability to connect with you through your breathing, through your heart rate. So when you get around the horse, the calming, I think, is probably the majority of the therapy. But being able to communicate, I would say telepathically, right? The horse communicates through thought and feeling. And so it helps people to get in touch with their feelings, to be clear with their thoughts. I think the benefits for equine therapy, they range from social skills to personal relationships. It's funny because I had somebody else ask me, and when I described what it takes to connect with a horse or to start a horse, they said that's a lot like what CEOs need, right? So in equine therapy, you build trust first, you establish the connection, and then you communicate clearly through love, and leadership. And I think any good leader has to have those qualities, right? They're excellent communicators. They have to have integrity. You have to be honest and consistent with the way that you're communicating with this horse. Your vision has to be very clear. You've got to have goals, and there has to be a direction that inspires the horse or person to do more, to be more. Adaptability is huge. The horse has to be able to adapt, and Mustangs are very good at adapting and navigating any kind of challenges that captivity presents them. They stay flexible. And I mentioned empathetic, right? Empathy, being able to show empathy and understanding, it creates a positive work environment, and it fosters collaboration and a sense of belonging. And so that works both ways.
That's awesome. And so you wanted to do this whole Cascade Trails idea in the beginning. It was supposed to be a sanctuary.
It is a sanctuary. The difference between a rescue and a sanctuary is rescues bring horses in and then sell them. A sanctuary brings horses in and they don't go anywhere.
Got it.
So we are stuck to the mission as a sanctuary. And I think until we start raising and breeding and training our own horses, we'll only bring horses in. We'll never sell horses until we've developed our own breed and all of that good stuff.
Awesome. Got it. And so you came out there, you don't have any horses in the beginning.
No.
So how did you get the horses? So you got the land.
So my mom actually still lives on a reservation in New Mexico. My first two horses came from the reservation. And then I think it's worth saying this: thoughts are things. The more you think about something, it will manifest. And I was thinking about horses constantly. And then all of a sudden, horses just started falling into my lap. I had a woman call me and say, hey, I got a Mustang. I thought I was going to be able to train it. It's too much horse for me. Can I give her to you? So there was 3 horses. I had a friend, just like I said, I got the 2 from my mom. And then I had a friend give me 2 more. So there were 5 horses. And then I had my uncle came down and was like, hey, I heard what you were doing. How can I help? I was like, adopt this Mustang out of the kill pen in Texas. There's 6 horses. Had another friend come. He was like, I don't know anything about horses. My dad used to take me to the track to watch thoroughbreds all the time. I want to save one and give her to you. Can I do that? I said, yeah, there's 7 horses. With these horses, I needed my own horse. So my mom had my horse out in New Mexico. And I was like, hey, you got to send my horse up here. I need to help.
Do you still have that horse?
Yeah, he's here.
Wow.
He's the best horse out here right now, too. So my horse came up. And then I had another lady call me and say, hey, I can't feed my horse. Can you take her? So that horse came. Who else? Oh, I went and did this commercial for AT&T. Somebody there was like, hey, we have a connection to a horse that is looking for a place. And you could probably pick her up on your way back to Joshua Tree. Pick that horse up. It came. Had a lady call me. I'm telling you, it was just crazy.
It just happens.
It just came. I had another lady call me. She had adopted a Mustang from Wyoming. They'd brought it down to her in Arizona. She got hurt. She couldn't do anything with the horse. So then she called me and was like, hey, I can't do anything with this horse. Can you come get her? And I was like, yep, I'll come get her. Went and got that horse. Yeah, man.
So how many are you at right now? If I'm
at 15 right now.
15? How much space do you have? Can you do more than 15 at the current
infrastructure? With the amount of space I can do, with the amount of space that I have, I can do about 180 horses. I won't do that many. Yeah.
Wow.
I won't do that many, but yeah, I could do about 180. And I think I'll stop around 90. My mentor and very close friend, she has 90 of her own horses. And they, aside from mine, are the happiest horses I've ever seen. And so I know that I could do 90 easily. But I might get to 40 and start my own breeding and training operation. And now I'm selling horses. So it really depends. Again, there's that adaptability, right? You've got to be able to adapt to what the situation is. But you had asked about the Airbnb, and I went off. So
yeah,
that really took place because when I first got out here and I was building the ranch, people were just driving by and they were like, hey, we've been looking for a place to park and camp all night. Is there any way we can just pay you to camp here? And I was like, sure. Why don't you go park right over there? And I'm setting up my stalls, and the area that I'm going to build the shade, and I'm having people park in specific spots so that I can get access to that land so I could build on it. So it really just worked out in my favor. But the horses are everything. The horses did everything. They provided everything. And they're the reason why I do this.
That is amazing. So the Airbnb stuff is really just, it was supplemental to the experience you're already offering, right? Absolutely. So walk me through a little bit about what that experience looks like when you go to Cascade Trails today. How does that whole thing? Yeah.
That's amazing. So it would be an interactive equine experience. And that could be anything from equine therapy, which you may not get on the horse at all. It can be an equine interactive activity that you're just grooming or you're petting or something like that. Or obviously we have the trail rides, and it really does cater to your experience, right? So if you have extensive horse experience and you know how to walk, trot, canter, then we have a horse that can take you on a walk, trot, canter. If you have extensive enough experience where you know how to take a horse out on your own, tack it up, all that good stuff, we have a horse for that as well. If you have no experience whatsoever and you are afraid to get on a horse, we have horses that you can interact with that will get you past those, I call them trauma blocks, right? Most people that have had bad experience with horses, it happened when they were a kid, or it happened in an unsafe, unsupervised manner, right? I think the beauty of what we do is to introduce people to horses in a safe manner where they can see this is a big pet and it can love on me just like a dog or a cat. So if you get the proper introduction, then you see these animals are amazing. And the experience here is all about horses. So from the time you come in to the time you put your stuff up is maybe 30 minutes before you're here at the horses, being active with the horses.
So currently, what kind of infrastructure you have in place for people staying there? Is it like a campground in the sense that like you have to have your own tent, or do you supply all that for people? What does that look like? Do you have water? Do you have
the beauty of the space that we have, it allows us to do all of that. So you can come and you've got your own setup. You've got your big rig, you pull in, you hook up, you take your ATVs down, you go right off into the dry lake. That's great. Or you don't have your own setup and you want to rough it. We have experiences where the tent is set up for you. It's accommodating to you, and then levels, right? Some of the tents do not have water. Some of them have their own showers and their own water, but it depends on what you're looking for. And I think with the revamp, if you will, of people going out and exploring and camping, it's very much, I think, of the high-end canvas camp, right? They have these set up all over the country. It's very similar to that, although it's like the mom and pop version, my version of it. And I've been doing it. It's funny because I've been doing it almost my whole life. We lived off the grid in Colorado when we lived on the reservation. We moved to our own land and still lived off the grid. Now I've bought my 56 acres and create an off-the-grid experience for people that want to see that and enjoy it.
That's awesome, man. And I know that some of your properties, I know you have a glamping property, the one that's like a dome, right? And it's so cool.
Yeah.
that one, not only is it a cool thing, it also crushes it, right? From a financial perspective. It's amazing. It's a great experience for people. And there's very few that can even have domes in Joshua Tree, which we'll get to as well.
Yeah, that's very true. You've got to have 5 acres at least. And with 56, we surpassed that easily. It's funny because I never looked at myself like being involved in real estate or in the short-term rental. None of that. I never even, none of it even crossed my mind. But, I think I'm a very big advocate for creating your own luck, right? When I first came out and I was building this, I met a guy who was living the dream, let's say. And then he got a divorce and he wanted to sell his home. And I think in the real estate world, they call that a motivated seller. And so he was very motivated. And in Joshua Tree, the price of housing has skyrocketed. So this guy was in for $90K and the owner wanted $290 for the house, right? But the house was worth close to $700,000. So I was like, yeah, I know somebody that'll buy that house.
That's a good deal.
So I talked to my partner and sure enough, he bought the house and he bought it and came up with a lot of equity. and gave me a little bit of that. And it was enough for me to put the down payment on my land. And so that was my first real estate deal. And then obviously the land purchase for myself.
You're saying that first, because I didn't know this, the first real estate deal that you did was what gave you the money to be able to buy your dream ranch.
Yep.
Wow. So real estate allowed you the freedom to with the equity to do what you dream of doing, which is being with horses.
Because I listen to your podcasts and I watch I've learned a lot from you, Patryk. But I want to say this, you are spot on when you tell people that real estate is the fast track to wealth. When I started putting the numbers together in my head, I thought, and I had a friend.
And you didn't, can I ask you, did you have the money to buy that you didn't have the money to buy that property, right?
I share this with you. I wrote the contract myself. The very first contract that I locked the land deal in. Look, long story long, I wrote the contract during the pandemic, and I was like, I want to lease the land with the first right of refusal for 2 years, and I'll pay $800 a month to lease this land with the first right of refusal. I was a year in and bought the land. And again, that was during the pandemic when acreage in Joshua Tree, people thought the world was going to end. So everything was for sale, real cheap. And I locked that land deal in. And now here we sit.
That is amazing, dude. And the fact that you didn't have the money, because a lot of people say, oh, I can't do this, or they have these mental blocks where they're like, oh, I can't get into real estate, or I can't build a ranch, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. You got to get creative, man. You got to start really thinking outside the box a little bit, because at the end of the day, it's not a problem about money. If I told you, Chris, today, I can give you a Ferrari for $40,000, would you buy that Ferrari?
For $40,000, yeah. I would figure
why?
Out because I know that Ferrari's worth $140,000.
Exactly. So that's like somebody handing you $100,000. So you think the same way I do. A lot of people think, why do I need that Ferrari for $40,000? Like, I don't need an expensive car like that. I got my Toyota Prius. It does good. Like, I don't need a Ferrari. But that's the consumer mindset. We're talking about producer mindset. We see market value on things. That's why you were able to buy that deal, and because you identified that deal and you made it happen. So I think you just think
something key in there, though. It's mindset, Patryk. It's mindset. Yeah. And all of that changes with the people that you're around, the company that you keep. So if you've got a poor mindset, then you've got to enrich yourself with enriched mindset friends so that you can get out of poor mindset, because you're right. It's a mindset thing. And as soon as you figure out how to flip the switch, magic happens. The lights come on.
What was your real estate experience before you bought that first property?
Negative real estate. None. But you know what I did have experience in? I did have experience in building relationships. I've been with horses my whole life. And in order to train a Mustang, like I said at the beginning of this, you've got to connect. And in order to connect, you have to develop trust. You have to communicate clearly. You've got to show love and leadership, right? So relationships are key. Had I met this guy who wanted to sell me this house and blew him off and didn't follow up and didn't create a relationship, that deal would have went to somebody else.
100%.
But relationships are key.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show that a lot of people in their lives are like, I can't get into X thing, like real estate or anything for that matter, because I don't have the skills for it. Whatever you're doing throughout your whole life, who would have thought that your experience with horses is something that not only made you a better person, better man, but it also made you more confident, more personable, more calm and collected, like all these things that attribute to allow you to do anything that you set your mind to. I think that's so cool, man. That is so left field. And I tell this to people all the time. They're like, I'm a photography guy. I don't know numbers. I don't know real estate, or I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. It's look, you've been learning something. You learn something from every experience you do. So that's cool, man.
I think it comes back down to, like I said, you got to go on a personal journey. You have to want better for your life and do the work that's going to take to get better. And once you do that, most people come out on the other side of that. How can I help more people? How can I help? What can I give to the world? And when you figure out what your gift is and you start giving it to the world, starts giving back a lot.
Giving back.
Most
I believe in that. 100%. Dude, great. So you had this real estate deal, got you the land. That's how it happened. You got these horses. Now you have these tents. So what's that experience been like so far? Like, where are you at currently with the whole experience? You guys got goats, you guys got ATVs. What's the current infrastructure for Cascade Trails? How does that all look like? What's the whole experience right now?
Right now, it's totally wide open when it comes to the experience. As far as the equine side of things, we can do everything equine, right? So if you, like I said, if you want to go trail riding, we've got that. If you need to do lessons, we've got that. If you just want the interactive experience, if you want the equine therapy, we've got all of that. So anything horse we can do right now. As far as the unique stays, like you said, the Geodome is really killing it. Everything else is pretty much the same, but I've been focusing on the horses more than trying to vamp up anything else. I think once I get to a comfortable position with the horses, then I'll start looking back at the glamping aspect of it. Because like I said, that kind of just fell into my lap. It wasn't really something that I was super focused on.
Right.
And right now I'm in the process of building a barn dominium and a well. So I've got my focus on other things. The glamping part of it is great, but it's not the main priority.
So let's talk about the glamping thing, because Chris, it seems every week somebody comes up to you with some grand old idea about, and this is the elephant in the room, man, because I'm sure there's probably people listening to this right now that are like, what is his freaking contact info? Let me hit him up and pitch him this crazy idea about glamping that you've never heard of before, Chris.
Look, it has to be crazy if I've never heard it, because I've heard everything from helicopters to camels.
So tell me about that.
Crazy.
What makes your land so special compared to everybody else's? Because in Joshua Tree, you can't do glamping in most parts. There's very little places you can do that. But I'm pretty sure because it's your land, right? Like your land is campground land.
It has to do with the zoning and the amount of acreage. I am rural JTRL5. So it's rural area. And the acreage is way past what they require. 5 acres is what they require minimum. Most of the plots out here are sitting on like 0.5 acres or 2.5 acres. So they don't fall under the requirements to be able to do it.
That is amazing, dude. And with all the ideas that people come to you about, the camels and the helicopters, can we talk a little bit about that?
Oh man. Well, I think the helicopter one was actually pretty unique. I liked it because it's sentimental, right? Mustangs are rounded up by helicopters in the wild. And so that idea hit home for me. Like, we could do so much more cooler things with helicopters than round up horses. So I really did like that. I think it's still in the concept phase. And so they need to do a lot more research and a lot more homework on how they really want to develop this out. Because even something as simple as, is it steel or fabricated? Steel in the desert can get pretty hot. And even if you just lean up against it, it's hot. With safety first in mind, these ideas are fantastic. Like I said, I mentioned the camel thing. Camels, you have to get 2 because they're herd animals, and they require 2 acres apiece. So that's 4 acres that I would have to designate off to just camels. And I've already got the majority of the extra acreage designated to horses. I've had people come at me with ideas about buffalo. I think the camels were the craziest though, but yeah.
Yeah.
Been a lot of different ideas.
There's a lot of people that come to you with the glamping idea. They're trying to partner with you or trying to buy land off of you so that they can do this idea with the whole glamping. So why don't you care for that? Like, why is that not part of the vision?
The reality is, Patryk, because this is a sanctuary, and it's not just a sanctuary for the Mustangs, it's a sanctuary for all the animals. And we've got right behind us is a tortoise sanctuary next to the Copper Mountain College. Mm-hmm. And we've got kit foxes over here. We've got ground owls. We have a lot of desert animals that this is the last corridor that they can pass through. And so really the reason is because I don't want to disrupt the ecosystem. unfortunately, that's just what happens when 50, 60 people are there every weekend. So that's probably the main idea, the main reason why I don't. But also because a lot of these places that I've seen and a lot of the ideas that I've seen, people come to the desert to be away from everyone, right? So a lot of these ideas are like, man, let's put 20 tents up over here and we'll put 4 yurts over here. And I'm like, that is not secluded. I don't want to be right next to somebody when I'm out trying to enjoy the stars or have an intimate conversation with my significant other or have family time or friend time. I want to be with my family and friends, not some strangers in a tent right next to me.
Yeah.
I think it's important that the ecosystem is preserved first and foremost. And then just from a class standpoint, like if I wanted to do 40 tents, I could do that already. I don't want to do that. So
Yeah. So what do you want to do? Now let's talk about the plan that nobody has really pitched you that you have to take on your own, because how nobody wants to build a well, right? That doesn't sound sexy.
Not fun. And that's a 60 grand chunk out of your pocket too. So it's important when you're doing construction. The goal is to build 3 barn dominiums. I'm building the first one soon. There's an amazing, actually you might work with them, Blue House Designs.
Art. Yeah.
Art is awesome. This contractor, Michael, is fantastic. And these fellows are giving me everything that I need. And so the ideas that we had, when I started doing some research on real estate, I think it could very easily go a couple different ways, right? I could build a small single family residence, 3 bedrooms, and skyrocket the property value up to $1.5 million or something, right? And then just sit on it because there's a lot of builds coming up around me that are just going to continue to raise the property value. But I don't see any barn dominiums in Joshua Tree, and I don't see any horse ranches in Joshua Tree. And so that's my goal. Build the barn dominium and the horse ranch in Joshua Tree. And then show the world that you can have horses coincide with a campground, because most campgrounds have plenty of space to be able to put 2 or 4 or 6 extra horses. And like I said at the beginning, my focus is Mustangs. In the world right now, there are lots of wild horses, but in North America, there are 80,000 wild horses. And they're all the way in Virginia and Maryland, up in Wyoming, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Colorado, Utah, Arizona. They're all over. And so if they're 80,000 and the government wants that number to be closer to 20 to 30,000, that's a lot of horses that need to go somewhere. And there are a lot of campgrounds all over the country. And it doesn't take a lot of space or, contrary to popular belief, a whole lot of work to take care of 2 horses. I'm doing this with a couple of my volunteers and my co-founder, Marissa, and we take care of 50. That's the ultimate goal, Patryk. Spread the awareness and get people to see that there are benefits to putting horses wherever you've got people.
That's awesome, man. And with you mentioned there's a strategy that you were at least now talking about 3 barn dominiums. Can you explain that?
So most of the time when you see barn dominiums, they're in a barn tack or a barn house. But barn dominiums now are like homes. So you can have a 4-bedroom barn dominium as the main house, a 3-bedroom barn dominium as the side house or the Wrangler ranch hand house, and then an event space, basically a chow hall where you can host your Wranglers, your people that are wherever. It's just a large event space. Growing up on ranches and farms, I've seen lots of weddings be held in barns, and it's cool. And the other thing I thought about is I'm a futuristic thinker, right? I'm like a space cowboy. I love Elon Musk. I think, how can we make these not 1820 barns, but 2024 barns? How can we make this a futuristic, all the bells and whistles, still cowboy flavor, but something that the people like you and I would say, whoa, that's a work of architecture right there.
Have you ever watched Cowboy versus Aliens? That's
good,
what
though.
it made me think of.
It sounds good. I got a lot of cool little pictures out here of Who knows what they are in the sky, but I could see that. Cowboy. Aliens.
There's a whole movie about it, how cowboys are taking on this alien invasion. It was so funny.
Funny.
Yeah. But anyways, it made me think of that. So awesome, Chris. I want to get into the last 3 questions for you. And I tell this to all my guests. One of the questions, I'm going to make it special for you, something I'm going to think of on the spot, specially tailored. So are you ready for it?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So number 1, your favorite book.
Favorite book. Wow.
Doesn't have to be business.
Just one.
Just one, man. You can do 2. I'll let you do 2.
Okay. I like the book by Gino Wickman called Traction.
Oh,
It's fantastic. I think every business owner should read that book. And I'm debating because I like this book. It's a sci-fi book. It's called The Legend of Eli Moonpress. And it's a compilation of 4 books together. But I read that because I was really reading a lot of heavy material at one point in time. And I needed something just to break that all up.
Yeah.
And I picked up The Legend of Eli Moonpress. And but I was debating between saying that and The World's Greatest Salesman by Og Mandino. Such a good book. But The Legend of Eli Moonpress is fantastic. But between those 3 books, you're going to have a whole lot of fun.
You're a great negotiator. You went from 1 book to 3 books. There you go. So read those books if you're a business guy.
Absolutely.
Greatest salesman right there. So cool. And then the second question is, what does the future look like for you as a person and as a business owner? Or I guess more than that, like what are you creating right now? What's the future look like for Chris?
I love that question, Patrick. The future looks bright for Chris. I think what I'm creating right now is what do they call that? There's a word for it when you do a first. I'm thinking
you're a trailblazer.
I'm thinking pilot, because when you do a first,
pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like a pilot site, right? This is showing that campgrounds can combine trail riding and horse experiences because they're already in secluded areas most of the time, and they already have enough space to add a few horses. So from here, I've been working on pitching my mentor to franchise her place, because I would not be who I am today without having had the experiences that I had and the opportunity that I learned while with her. And so I think that the horse world needs it, and we could expand and franchise this into a place where people could learn about horses the proper way, because not just Mustangs are suffering. All horses are suffering, from the deaths on the track to a lack of veterinary care. When most people went to school to be a vet, they thought dogs and cats. So we're suffering in the equine vet area as well. And like I said, a lot of these horses that are on the tracks that are dying, that can be prevented. And it's all information and education. And I think building a platform here that we can show you can be educated in the horse world in so many different ways. And the proper way is the only way that counts. Great question, though.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm excited for that. Starting with Joshua Tree, and it's gonna just scale from there, right? So that's a big vision, but I don't think it's too big for you, Chris, man. You're young, so you got a lot of time. Cool.
Last question.
I'm gonna give you, man. So let's say that Joshua Tree didn't work out for you. Let's say Joshua Tree is never part of it. Where would you look if you can look and buy a horse ranch anywhere in the world and do this concept, because you had the money, time, whatever? Where would you want to have that horse ranch?
That's already in the process. It's in the process right now. It's going to be in Branson, Missouri.
Ooh, I love Branson.
It's the next spot. I'll just tell you the area. There's a huge lake and a Bass Pro Shop in Branson. That entire upper area that overlooks the lake, my partner just bought all that. And there's another trailer park down on the side. He bought that as well. They're revamping that into an RV park. They're redoing the condos on the top. And there's probably about 400 acres worth of woods behind that, where we're building the next Cascade Trails.
Wow, that is awesome, man. That's exciting.
If I had to pick another place, I'd say Hawaii.
Hawaii. That would be cool. That would be cool.
Horseback riding on the beach. Can't beat that.
Amazing. Dude, so the people that felt inspired, the people that want to reach out to you and pitch you another glamping idea, where can they reach you?
Please, it's not glamping. If you're interested in housing, and I'm even entertaining affordable housing right now with the situation. I've got enough. We've got a pretty good run along Highway 29 to where those accommodations could be. But if they wanted to reach out to me, I'm easy to find. You can look up the company. MustangSanctuary.com is the website. You can actually find me on IG. My name is Chris Waldhaus. Or if they know you, Patryk, and you think it's a good idea, they can go through you. And I've found that you do business with people you know, you like, and you trust. So if you send them to me, then they've got a star already, right? But other than that, if you can't find me, I guess I'm not meant to be found.
Awesome. So yeah, definitely we're gonna put it in the show notes so that people can actually reach out to you on Instagram. But Chris, you're the man. Thank you so much for hopping on, and talk to you later. See you next time.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Patryk Real Estate Show. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a follow and leave us a 5-star review. Your support truly means a lot. And connect with Patryk in the show notes below. Until next time.